In a world where dungeon raids became entertainment, heroes and demons now fight for rankings instead of survival. He was a black mage in one of the strongest hero parties, until his own teammates kicked him out for being useless. Because debuffs and dark magic weren't flashy enough for the audience. But the moment he loses everything, the Demon King's army personally offers him a new job. Turns out the weak support mage was secretly trained by the Demon King himself. Now the party that abandoned him will have to clear the most impossible dungeon in the world, with him waiting at the top. The story begins with Lamie thinking that humans fought demons, and heroes conquered the Demon King's domain. This is the story of centuries past, when peace reigned on the earth, and an era arrived where fighting and hunting in dungeons were considered simple entertainment. That day, he lost his job. Adventurers and monsters used similar tricks in battles, both preferring to use magical clones in battles. During dungeon raids, the death rate decreased. Videos of this were broadcast across the continent. In the current world, adventurers and even demons, the hero and the Demon King have become mere professions. Currently, in the Demon King's castle on the 4th floor, the adventurer Alba ran forward and attacked several monsters at once with his whip dagger. The announcer watched this and said that his magic sword was furious. 3 werewolves. Wait, at least 10 werewolves were killed at once. He's not imagining it, is he? That's amazing power. It's hard for him to use this skill because he's vulnerable during attacks. However, the Holy Knight Lark is covering him, as expected of him. Such a caring support. They are both very strong. But we shouldn't forget about group coordination. It's still important for raids. Although Lark is considered a warrior, he is able to make prudent decisions and cover his teammates. He is very strong. The protagonist thought about it. He can't hear them inside the dungeon, but it must be them speaking? The announcer said that his skill allows him to use himself as a shield, after all. Phoenix stepped forward and said that he was attacking him. He can count on them to deal with the vanguard? Alba asked loudly. In that case, they have no choice, right? Lark turned to him and agreed with a calm expression. Lily said he could just move forward. She attacked monsters with her bow, and the commentator admired her incredible speed. There are only 3 confirmed users in this world. Today, they will see the supersonic shooting skill with their own eyes. This speed is impossible to notice with the naked eye. If they pay attention to the enemies exploding from arrows, they will be able to clearly feel this power. 8 of them were destroyed in an instant. Meanwhile, Phoenix goes to the floor boss, who guards the gate to the next floor. As if this whole situation is a simple illusion, dozens of werewolves are still roaming the area. His comrades must attack with all their might to protect him. MC watched this from afar and thought that it looked like most of them had already fallen. Well, if things continue like this, it won't be long until the boss room. Alba attacked the monster that was about to attack and said that it shouldn't stand still. It's as if he's only adding to the problems. He chuckled and asked, "Or is this what his dark magic specializes in?" A monster was about to attack him from behind, but Lily shot it and said that there were still enemies roaming around. They should focus. He agreed and went on, but looked at him and clicked his tongue in displeasure. At that moment, the announcer said with admiration that Phoenix had finally reached the boss floor. This monster is truly gigantic in size. It is 3 times the size of an ordinary werewolf. What enormous power. However, even in front of the floor boss, he does not show even a hint of fear. He stopped in front of the boss, called out to the leader of the werewolves, and said that he was sorry, but they will pass this floor. The monster attacked with its paw, but he did not lose his composure and blocked with his sword. Suddenly, a powerful explosion occurred, which affected only the werewolf. The announcer said loudly with admiration that flames surround the werewolf's body. The floor boss writhes in pain. He fights with all his might, but cannot escape. He ran up to the monster and dealt a powerful blow, causing the flames to flare up even more. His teammates watched from the sidelines, and as the monster fell to the ground, he said that their battles would always be victorious. The commentators, admiringly, loudly declared that it was all over. The floor boss had been defeated. Phoenix, the hero of Flame, had once again defeated the boss with a single blow. They had completed the raid on the 4th floor with flying colors. Nothing less could be expected from this team. The power of the Holy Sword will vary depending on the spirit contained within. The spirit he controls is the spirit of fire, which is said to be the source of all heat in this world. It is clearly a spirit of the highest rank. In fact, his criteria for choosing a host are very high. For this reason, in the last 130 years, he was the first to make an agreement with the spirit. Now they had entered the safe room. It looks like their raid will end here for today, which is bad. Do they all want to see the continuation of their adventures on the 5th floor? If you think about it, the Dark Mage has a support position, but given the current system, he doesn't think the team should give him priority. In fact, he feels like the situation wouldn't have changed much if he weren't there. In any case, a white mage would have suited this team better. The spectators looked at him and said that was indeed true. In fact, he didn't move an inch. Limei wondered if they were up to their old tricks again. White magic includes restoration, enhancement, and purification skills, which are useful in battle. However, black magic is designed to do the exact opposite. Black magic is used to reduce speed, weaken attack and defense, cloud the mind, make one immune to poison, and create blinding darkness. Black and white magic are different from offensive and defensive magic. It's difficult to notice their effects visually, and most people know why black magic is neglected. It's because it's simplified. The effects of white magic, healing wounds, and enhancing abilities are easily felt by teammates. However, since black magic targets the enemy, his allies don't notice much of a change. This is true even now, when dungeon crawling has become a pastime. Black magic becomes even more unappealing to them. During battle, even though he weakens the enemy's magical and physical attacks, even their speed, mental abilities, and limits their vision, this was never covered live. Unlike his comrades, who fight brilliantly, in the eyes of the audience, he simply stands aside. Even if he casts spells, he will receive an absurd number of comments about how weird he is. So the next floor is the 5th, right? Among all the dungeons scattered around the world, the legendary dungeon, the Demon Lord's Castle, still holds the record for the most teams that have failed to reach its final floor. Thanks to the raid authorization stone, it's possible to recover from the last checkpoint. However, even so, not a single team that confronted the Demon Lord in the deepest part of the Demon Lord's castle has lived to tell of that place. Among the tens of thousands of official teams, they rank 4th. The rankings are determined by the Adventurers Association based on popularity and achievements, and are updated every year. For a team as strong as theirs, it remains a mystery why they need someone like him. Their team officially consists of 5 people, including the hero. Moreover, the flame hero Phoenix, in all 130 years, was the first to make a contract with the Spirit of Fire. Many pin their hopes on him to put an end to the legend of the Demon King's impregnable castle. He is also his childhood friend. A hero like him, compared to him, is a simple and unpopular dark mage like himself. That day, he lost his job. It happened shortly before he left the team. They all came to the tavern as a team, where Alba asked, "Is he a burden to their team? Isn't he?" They were all sitting at the same table. He loudly slammed his mug on the table, looked at him and asked, "Is he wrong?" Phoenix was indignant about this, called his name, but he didn't listen and loudly said that he should stop standing up for him. He says this every time. Lark, Lily, and he joined this team, proving their bravery and strength. However, what about him? He's just a childhood friend who is simply taking a place in their team. Does he understand that? If not for that, who would let a dark mage join them? The protagonist laughed and agreed. He got angry about this, slammed his mug on the table, and loudly said that there was nothing funny about it. He should just face the facts and stop parasitizing on him. Phoenix loudly asked him to stop and said that he should apologize to him. It was too disrespectful. He is not as weak as he says. Alba turned to him and said he didn't think so. What do they think about this? They don't have to take care of him, do they? Lark was eating and said he didn't care whether he was with them or not. That's what he thinks. He leaned towards him and asked, so he would prefer someone else in his place? They can get someone better than him right now if he leaves. He thought about it and said that if they hired a more active person, it would be easier for them. He asked loudly, "Now does he understand?" Lily said that she did not like listening to his vulgar speech. He turned to her with a smirk and said that he was not raised very well. By the way, what does she think of this guy? She said that she did not think Phoenix would add a person to the team just because of personal attachments to him, ignoring physical strength. In any case, it is true that the effect of black magic is not always noticeable. Moreover, they advance through the raid with high speed and offensive power, so honestly, she would prefer someone stronger than a support. Alba chuckled because of this, and said that this is how things are. He put his hand on MC's shoulder, called him, and asked if he said all this. Not because he hates him or anything like that. Does he understand? That's it. He has to use his black magic on him. That way, they will understand everything, right? If his black magic really takes effect, then he will sincerely apologize to him. He was surprised because of this, remembered his childhood when a man came to him and said that he would make him his disciple. However, if he heard him complain even once, he would no longer teach him. Neon approached Phoenix after that and said that he can't tell anyone about his teacher. He needs to keep him a secret. The man said that he is not allowed to tell anyone about this. Doesn't he crave power? Currently, he was tired of listening to criticism towards his friend. He clenched his hand into a fist and said that he should stop. He will not forgive him if he continues like this. However, unexpectedly for him, Lemma said that he understood everything and would leave the team. He was worried about this, and Alba came up to him, put his hand on his shoulder, and with a wide smile said that this is excellent. He still decided to do it. Now they understand? He's just a timid guy. Having such a person in a top 4 team in the world is just ridiculous. I wonder who he could replace their dark mage with. People turned to them and asked, "Is this guy leaving?" He thought that this had happened many times before, and it didn't start with him. It's all because he is a dark mage. Adventurers are simultaneously part of the meritocracy and the entertainment industry. If they are weak, they can't raid dungeons. But if they are not attractive, people will not look at them either. Adventurers, even their comrades, will push them away. He is confident that what he aspired to in the past was not a lifestyle where he is insulted and humiliated. If he can't change the situation with people or the debt given to him, then he has no choice but to change himself. He went to leave, but Phoenix asked him to wait and he said it was okay. He turned to him and said that he was going to surpass them with another group. He was a little surprised by this, and Alba loudly said that there was no group here that would take him. The protagonist went to leave and thought that they had always been friends. However, From now on, they would be rivals. Later, he sat in an alley and thought that he still had the same old problems, but as always, he needed to sort this out. If he had explained everything to them, he might have been able to stay with them, if they had known what his true power really was. However, if he did so, he would have exposed his teacher. And this was not their dream. Phoenix kept the promise they made to each other back in childhood. However, because of this, every time he covered for him, he always felt guilty because it shook their trust in him. He had previously stated that he would join another group, but in reality, only heroes can form groups. He was just a dark mage who, for some unknown reason, had been in this group all this time. Who would want to recruit someone like him? Someone who left such a group. He was surprised because someone nearby loudly said that he had warned that he did not want anything like this. What kind of stubborn child is this? Two merchants apologized, and the disgruntled customer walked on and loudly asked, who would even buy something like this? MC looked at this from afar and noticed a half-breed child. A merchant named Blitz, standing nearby, patted her on the head and said that he was sure he had already eaten somewhere else. Besides, she would meet even worse customers at night. She just needs to try her best tomorrow too. He approached them, apologized, and asked if they were still open. He was quite hungry. They agreed and said welcome. He sat down in front of her and asked if she helped in the store. Could she recommend him anything? She looked towards the fruits and asked if it was this one. He said that in that case, he would take this one. She said with a confused look that what he took was a bit ugly. However, this one had a clear color, so she was sure that it was very tasty. However, it was a pity that because of this no one bought it. That's why she tries so hard to convince people that it was delicious. But everyone said they didn't want it. She was about to say something else, but he didn't listen and took a bite of the fruit. He agreed with a smile and said that it was very tasty, just like she said. She was surprised by this, and he said that it was really so. She looks not only at appearance but also at what's inside. She really is a wonderful salesperson. Would she mind if he came to buy something from her again? He would like the salesperson to give him all sorts of recommendations. She was very happy about this, agreed and thanked him for it. Blitz asked, what a relief, right? She now had a personal client. She thanked him again, but Lemme refused and said that he should apologize for disturbing them at such a late hour. He thanked her, but she hid behind the salesman's back. He laughed and said that she was just very awkward. He started to leave and said that he would see her again then. She plucked up her courage, came out from behind him and with a cheerful look said that her name was Kashu. He turned to her, introduced himself, and she said that she was very grateful for today. She would wait for his return, be it tomorrow or later. No matter how long it takes, she will still wait for it. They waved goodbye to each other. He walked on and thought that even a person like him wants to be needed by someone. He did it under the influence of the situation. But it was strange, wasn't it? However, he was not needed as a dark mage. Even such a young girl does everything in her power. He must do his best too. He looked at the sky and remembered how the teacher said that it would be a long and grueling battle. If he did not reach the top, then no one would recognize his worth. The protagonist thought that he believed that somewhere there was someone who would need him. At the same time, in one of the rooms of a huge castle, a demon sat looking at his photo on a tablet and called out his name and role. After some time, he wondered how long this would continue. He came to different people, but when they learned more about him, they refused to accept him into the group. After all this, he fell on the floor in his room and thought with a depressed look that this was a defeat. He remembered the promise to surpass Team Phoenix and thought that even though he said so, he hadn't even found a group yet. Ever since he rejected the job his parents found for him and became an adventurer, he hasn't been able to return home. Then, he came to the conclusion to use the competition search service provided by a branch of the Adventurers Association. Although it is expensive, he doesn't care. He entered his information, the device began searching for suitable queries, and he was confused when he saw that there were no matches. He was very upset about this and thought that it would be better to eat something now. He went to the market, told about it, and Blitz said that since he is a dark mage, he must be in a really tough time right now. MC said that it doesn't seem like people are recruiting dark mages everywhere. He asked, then why not look at something else? He said it wasn't that he couldn't use something else, it was just that he had a predisposition for it. Besides, adventurer registration generally only allows jobs they have an aptitude for. He realized this, and Kashu approached him and, to support him, said that she thought dark magic was really cool. He felt a little better, thanked her, and said he was glad to hear it. However, getting such a generous client, I think that's why he has such a beautiful girl instead of a tired salesman. She felt embarrassed by this, and he was a little confused and said that it was a lie. He thought with a small smile that he was a regular here now. She was only 8 years old, and she didn't just help out. She tried with all her heart to help her family with money, no matter how little it was, so it seemed she was allowed to work here. It seemed he was her very first customer, and he also wanted her to continue encouraging him. So now he came here quite often. It hadn't been long since he met the shopkeeper, but he was worried about him. Blitz said that he understood everything perfectly well though. He also wanted to become a tailor, but no matter how much he trained, he couldn't compare to those who had a job. Lem thought that in their country, people learn about it at the temple when they turn 10 years old. They learn about the job they are suited for, like a prophecy that descends upon them. From the jobs that belong to adventurers to those rooted in life, like cooks, merchants, or blacksmiths. No matter how much effort they put in or how much they want something, they have no choice. It's a gift the gods give them. If he were granted what he desired, it would certainly be a blessing from the gods. However, for those who didn't receive such a thing, it would be a trial. More precisely, for someone like him who dreamed of becoming a hero, it was akin to despair. He said it was because if his efforts had truly paid off, he would have gotten this job. Kashi looked away, noticed the visitor, and said, "Welcome." They both noticed her working with a happy expression, and he asked, "They can only continue to do what they can, right?" Blitz agreed with a small smile, and said that even if he didn't succeed, he wouldn't mind him working here with her. He laughed, and was about to thank him, but their conversation was interrupted by a loud, frightened scream from a girl nearby. They looked to the side and noticed a man steal her bag and run through the market, waving a knife to scare people away. The protagonist noticed him running this way, turned around and loudly asked if he could stand in the man's way. Blitz was surprised by this and loudly asked if he was going to do anything. He agreed and said that it would only be support, but everything would be fine and he would not be harmed. He trusted him, went out to the middle of the road, called him by name, and said that he was asking him to look after Kasia. He agreed, took her behind the counter, and told her that they should hide. As soon as she moved to a safe place, he turned to the bandit and thought that magic was allowed if it was within the framework of everyday life. But if he overdid it, he would come under surveillance. The bandit continued waving the knife in front of him, noticed that someone had gotten in his way, and loudly asked, did he have a death wish? However, MC used target lock, and it was successful. The moment the thief ran close enough, he activated his skills and instantly lost his vision. He was shocked by this and thought that his body suddenly became heavy. Why couldn't he see anything? He also felt that it was becoming difficult for him to breathe, and Blitz took advantage of the moment, delivered a few blows, and knocked the knife out of his hand. The thief fell to the ground, and he loudly said that justice had prevailed. He stood next to a crowd of surprised people, and loudly said that he defeated that guy with a knife so easily. Cashew peeked out from behind the counter. He leaned towards her, apologized, and quietly said something. While they were talking, the girl whose bag had been stolen approached him and thanked him for his help. He handed her the bag and said it was nothing special. He was just doing what any citizen should do. She came closer, called him a shopkeeper, and said he was so cool. The girl was surprised by this and said that means he is a shopkeeper. Then, as thanks, she asks to sell her one of these fruits. People around also went to their stand and asked to buy their products. Lime thought that what a relief, having forced him to do something good, people would want to give him something in return, especially if he is a hero who stopped a criminal. Blitz turned to him, gave him a thumbs up with a smile, and he returned it. Two men approached the thief, helped him up, and led him along the road. He looked at this and thought that, although he used dark magic, in fact, it was not something he could easily do in front of a man with a knife. As an apology for taking down the criminal in his stead, it would be nice if it could contribute to his shop, even just a little. He left the market and thought, he didn't lose his touch, did he? Even after he left the group, he at least continued his training, since that was the promise he initially made to his teacher. Even after his job was determined, he couldn't give up on becoming a hero, so he desperately tried his best in front of his teacher. Now that he thinks back on it, it feels like special training, like he was in hell, doesn't it? He was left alone in the mountains with beasts, told to climb back up by himself after being pushed off a cliff, and beaten half to death by his teacher. Constantly training with dark magic cast on himself, he learned firsthand when his physical abilities were deteriorating or when his eyesight was starting to fail. He even trained his body to remember the precise adjustments. As long as he isn't interrupted, he never makes a mistake in his magic. He also takes measures to ensure that no one passing by finds out about his use of black magic, to make sure that no one knows that he is a dark mage who used to be in a group ranked 4th in the entire world. Although, most likely, no one will notice anything, even if he doesn't go that far. An unfamiliar girl named Camilla passed by him and said that she was watching him. The protagonist was surprised by this. They both turned to each other, and she stated his role and name. He wondered with a shocked look, did she just notice him? She said that he was truly beautiful. She means that in addition to flawless control over magic, his ability to contract and release several types of dark magic in just a few seconds. She was completely captivated. He thought that what he did earlier was completely exposed. Who is this woman anyway? She said that, to be honest, she was a big fan of his. He was even more confused by this and wondered, is this some kind of joke? He would believe it if there was someone like Phoenix. But his fan, she said that she never imagined that she would witness the master's dark magic with her own eyes, so she accidentally slowed down while following him. She lifted her hat and said that she almost lost sight of him. He with a surprised expression on his face, thought that he had just noticed her fangs. She looked like a bat. Is she really a vampire? She asked if he really hated demi-humans. He denied it and said that he was just a little surprised. She politely called him, took his hands and said that his dark magic was truly wonderful. It may seem rude, but she had been looking for him since he left the group. She can't help but think that the Phoenix group made a serious mistake by excluding him. He blushed and felt embarrassed because she leaned too close to him and told her about it. She was also very embarrassed, abruptly moved away from him, asked for forgiveness, and said that she had always dreamed of meeting a man like him. It was an accident. She sat down, asked for forgiveness in a worried tone, and said that she asked him not to despise such a shameless person. MC thought that even though he had always been harshly criticized up to this point, but for such a beautiful girl to say that she was his fan, and to top it off, she held his hand and she smelled nice. Wait, this is not what he should think about now. He asked her to forget about it and said that this is not something for which he can hate someone. It just happened so suddenly, he hadn't even asked her name yet. She was surprised by this, turned around and asked with a small smile, "So he's a kind person?" She came closer and asked if he hadn't changed since then. He was confused by this and asked if they had met before. He thought she didn't look like an adventurer. Besides elves, there are practically no demi-humans among adventurers, especially if she's a vampire. But where had he seen her then? He asked her to ignore him, and she said with a small smile that her name was Milla. If he doesn't mind, could she buy him a cup of tea? She knows that this is very unexpected, but he is the number 4 adventurer in the world. I mean, she might not have this opportunity again, so as long as he agrees, she will choose the place then. He was confused by this, didn't know what to do, and she asked with a slightly worried look, maybe he was against it? He was even more confused by this, but quickly calmed down and said that it wasn't like that. Everything was fine. The protagonist thought, who could refuse such a thing? However, Camilla truly stands out. It's no wonder. She's so beautiful. She's on a whole other level compared to a simpleton like him. The girls spoke, and their conversation would take a different direction. She hadn't had the chance to say it, but he's an excellent black mage. The protagonist stared at her in surprise. She looked at his reaction and said, "Don't be modest. Among the top 100 groups in the world, there are only 3 dark mages, and he's in the top 10. Of course, in the entire adventurer world, a dark mage is distinguished by being less flashy and showy. However, the only reason the Phoenix group has reached such heights is because of him. Such a feat couldn't be achieved with ordinary dark magic. Moreover, his ability to control magic is due to the fact that he personally knows every minute detail about the effects of his dark magic." MC listened to her in surprise, hardly believing what he heard. Camilla continued, "Of course, they must have put in incredible effort, unimaginable for ordinary people." Lime recalled the words of his former comrades. Alda had said that he was, ultimately, just a burden, and Lily had remarked that she didn't care whether he was with them or not. That's what she thought. Instead of support, she should have chosen firepower. He answered out loud. It was the first time he'd heard such words since becoming an adventurer. He thought that even though Camilla had said she was his admirer, he wondered if she could know so much about him just by being one. The girl had mentioned, first of all, even the Phoenix hero's ability, killing a floor boss with a single blow, was simply due to his role as a dark mage, weakening all the enemies. What were they thinking, considering such a high-ranking dark mage? Humans really were idiots. Her face expressed such despair that he called out her name in bewilderment. Camilla winced, then smiled and replied, "She apologizes. That was it. That was what her friend once said." She laughed sheepishly. The protagonist said, "I see, a friend then. Could she please express his gratitude to her when they met? It was so nice to have someone who could support him so much." Camilla replied, "Of course." He looked at her in surprise. What was she talking about? After a while, she apologized for the wait and said, "They've arrived." The protagonist looked ahead and, confused, said, seeing a majestic building before him, "It's the Demon Lord's palace." Camilla said, "She sincerely apologizes if she startled him." The MC said in amazement, "She's a demon, right?" The girl removed her hat and replied, "They've known about his true power for a long time, but seeing him with her own eyes, she was completely convinced. He is a man worthy of respect and reverence. She begs him, please, no matter what, let him share his power with them." After a while, she led him inside and, opening the door to a dark hall, reported to her mistress, Lucy, that she had brought Lemma to her. The demon lord greeted her on her return, calling her by name. The protagonist suddenly remembered. Camilla is the boss of the 3rd floor of the demon lord's palace. Her attacks look like she's sucking the blood of her enemies through bats. But in fact, she manipulates magic to attack. She's cruel and can't resist torturing people. That's just her personality. But she's nothing like Milla. Peering into the darkness and seeing a silhouette, he noted, "Is that the demon lord herself?" Lucy, looking at him, asked, "So he's Liam?" He tensely replied, "Yes, he is a dark mage." He thought, the demon lord's palace is a dungeon with 10 floors. A person won't see the demon lord until they've cleared all the floors. No one has done this before. So apparently, he's the first person to see the demon lord. But if she's the ruler, why does she have a childish voice? Lucy answered, "I see." Suddenly, a light illuminated her, and she said, "She's the ruler of this palace. Her name is Lucy, and she's the demon lord. The protagonist was dumbfounded when he saw a mere child on the throne. She asked, "What's wrong? Was there something wrong with her?" He replied sheepishly, "No, everything's fine. She just looks much younger than he imagined." Lucy asked in a wheedling voice, "So he's saying she's not the demon lord?" MC, straining, replied, "For someone who's never seen her, this is unexpected. It's not for him to say." She chuckled thoughtfully, then said that if he were a typical boor, she would have kicked him out right then and there. But there was something about him. Anyway, enough introductions, time to get down to business. The ruler extended her hand, pointing at him, and proclaimed that she was appointing him one of the commanders of her palace army. He exclaimed in confusion, "Army commander." He wondered if it was normal to make him number 2 in the demon lord's army, and was that a role suitable for a human? Lucy asked in bewilderment, and he made a face as if he were hearing about this for the first time. She turned to Camilla and asked, "Didn't she tell him everything?" The girl sheepishly apologized and replied that she thought bringing him would be better than explaining. Lucy asked, confused, what was she talking about? Then she looked at MC and asked, "He followed her without knowing anything?" Enraged, she shouted, "What was he thinking when she introduced herself as his admirer? Maybe he was thinking that he'd be able to touch her? He was thinking that, right?" The protagonist exclaimed in confusion. He'd never thought of anything like that. Lucy grew even more angry. "So he's saying she's not attractive? Is he out of his mind, you idiot?" The protagonist was at a loss for words and didn't know what to do or say. Camilla herself saved the situation. She addressed her mistress forcefully and, drawing her attention to herself, gave her a broad smile. Lucy immediately changed her anger to mercy, cleared her throat, and said in a placating tone, "They've strayed from the topic," he thought, but she started it. The overlord continued, "Camilla wants him to become one of her commanders." The MC was even more surprised. "Camilla?" Lucy replied, "Yes." The girl herself spoke. If she hadn't looked at him closely, she wouldn't have noticed. Lucy asked which lord had trained him. Lemme wondered in surprise. What was she talking about? His master. The lord continued, there was no way he could have achieved such abilities. He was now on the same level as a dark mage who had trained for 100 years, maybe more. Though he hid it well, she could see that his abilities were beyond human. She looked at him intently and added, "Let him answer her question." He remained silent, perplexed, unsure of what to say. Lucy said that if he didn't want to talk, then he shouldn't answer. She understood. It was all fine. Dark magic had originally been degenerate spells, called dark arts. Although a demon lord had once plunged humanity into the abyss of horror, for a long time he had been distinguished from a heroic ally of humanity. He had even been designated by countries as a separate danger. First, if he was discovered, it would be trouble for him, right? He's a diligent student who cares about his master. He asked her for forgiveness, puzzled. Lucy told him not to worry about it. However, first, how could he have the same hair color, eyes, and horn as hers? She looked at him expectantly, but he remained silent. Lucy sighed heavily and pulled at her, puzzled. It seemed he still didn't know the answer to this question, but still, she ruled this palace as the lord. However, let him tell me what he thinks of the grandfather who abandoned his granddaughter and retired himself. The protagonist thought, dumbfounded. Grandfather? That can't be true. She's the master's granddaughter? The lord cursed and said, her grandfather and that man both abandoned the demon lord throne. Why don't they understand the benefits of this status? It's unfortunate. Or, to put it another way, she was incredibly lucky. Who would have thought she'd find a relative in such a place? The protagonist was confused. He thought she was saying his master was her grandfather. The ruler remarked, to think there was at least one living person who had been trained by her grandfather. After thinking for a moment, she turned to Camille with a laugh and said, she wasn't mistaken. This guy is worth it. The girl apologized to her mistress and replied that she too hadn't expected him to be like this. MC didn't understand anything. Trained? She was talking about the master's training? Finally, Lucy spoke up. Just a few minutes ago, she had planned to test him, but now there was no need. Let him, as her commander, help the demon lord's palace achieve greatness. Confused, he asked her to wait a minute. The protagonist paused. He'd gone too far. To think a former adventurer had joined the side that was fighting against the hero. Camille said she wouldn't force him. However, she would be glad to work with him. He said her name with confusion. The girl asked if she could ask him. Why did he decide to become an adventurer? Knowing he was a dark mage, his decision seemed very difficult. The protagonist lowered his head and sheepishly admitted that it was because he wanted to become a hero. All he ever wanted was to become a hero, and he was asking for their forgiveness. Of all the possible options, that was the one they heard. Lucy replied that he didn't have to worry about it. Camilla added, do many human children have a similar dream? Why did he want that? He looked at the girls in surprise and thought, isn't it obvious that this is wonderful? Camilla remarked that he wanted to look heroic, defeating monsters on the other side of the screen. The MC clenched his fists and thought, yes. He wanted to fight monsters personally. He would demonstrate brilliant swordplay and ice or fire spells. When he walked down the street, anyone who saw him would start praising his efforts. He would have long battles in the dungeons that would push him to the limit, and his life would be wonderful. That was his childhood dream. An ideal future, in which there was nothing bad. Camilla said, glory and admiration? What does he think of a hero? He, torn from his thoughts, asked confusedly, what? The girl continued, he is an excellent dark mage. But that's not the only reason she respects him. Even when he's worried, he still helps people without asking for anything in return. And he's even so kind that he surrenders all honor to them, acting in the name of justice, not glory. Such a person should have been called a hero from the start. A person's profession simply indicates their abilities, but it doesn't define the person themselves. This applies to the hero too. Does he really still want to be a hero? Is that possible only by being an adventurer? Those who attack dungeons are adventurers, and those who defend against them are monsters. He thought with confusion. Monsters were originally just a role now assumed by demi-humans. Adventurers were mostly human, with the exception of a few elves and the like. He undoubtedly desired to be a hero, but he had never considered becoming a monster. He wondered out loud if becoming a monster would change anything. Camilla replied that monsters, unlike adventurers, always concealed their true nature. He would likely gain no particular fame, and he would be far from the hero he dreamed of. She didn't know his circumstances, but she could tell he had no intention of fully revealing his abilities. However, by becoming a monster and hiding his true nature, he would be able to express them to his heart's content. No one in this palace would feel uneasy about them. The MC asked tensely, will he, or rather, a dark mage like him, be able to become a monster in the Demon Lord's army? Camilla replied that, of course, it would be different from what everyone had seen before. The effects of dark magic aren't fully understood by viewers, and yet, every monster who had fought him knew his existence would lead to their defeat. His dark magic power finds the threat he poses as an enemy. If he becomes their ally, he would be the most prominent and powerful being in the world. Just as humans resent the actions of adventurers, so too do demi-humans need someone to become their symbol. And for her too, it might be different from his desire to become a hero, but she never wanted to become a monster, hunted like prey, he thought as he beat up heroes and scared them away in the Demon Lord's palace, a place so complex. By doing so, they could become a ray of hope for the half-breeds who hesitate to become monsters. They could become someone who can compete with adventurers. It's like him, wanting to become a hero. Camilla asked if she could say something. Monsters and adventurers are equal. If one is different, a dungeon raid is impossible. Besides, the audience admires the mere existence of such powerful monsters. She never looked at them, humans, as prey. Yes, because he is like this, she wanted to at least try to contact him, because he is truly kind and strong. Please let him answer. Will he become their hero? The protagonist thought for a moment and answered, he will. Lucy cleared her throat and said, since they have come to the same agreement, then we must repeat it again. She, the Demon Lord Lucy, and he, the Dark Mage Lem. She appoints him as one of the commanders of her palace army. After a while, he thought about it. That day, he was rehired after being expelled from their hero group, ranked 4th in the world. His new place of work is the Demon Lord's palace. His profession is a Dark Mage. His new position is army commander, and his goal is to become a hero who leads monsters. Even if he has to fight his friends, he no longer has any doubts. At this time, Phoenix asked his comrades, now, let them say, are they coming? Suddenly, the protagonist noticed that they weren't alone in evil. There were several more people sitting at the table. He exclaimed in bewilderment, what is this? Lucy replied, let him forgive her. She forgot to say something. Let him allow her to introduce him to the 4 generals of the Demon Lord's palace. They are Agaras and Furcus. MC thought in confusion. 4 generals. So Camilla is also a general? Have they been here from the very beginning? Camilla, noticing his state, asked if he was nervous with so many people around. Alas, one hadn't arrived yet, but he was helping them now as an ally from the outside. Lucy remarked with a slight smile. She supposed it must be a piece of cake for him, he thought. A dark mage too? Demon Lord is just a profession now. Only demons can become one, which means they're appointed by demons too. Even if warriors and mages have equal skills, only those with charisma will be noticed by society, which means it's analogous to human heroes. That's why dark magic is viewed so differently now. Lucy said, well, now it's time to tell him about his duties. She appointed Camilla as his secretary. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise, isn't she one of the 4 generals? Making her a secretary, isn't that too much? Lucy remarked, so what? She thought he understood that the commander reported directly to the Demon Lord. Did he know he was above the general? He was dumbfounded by what he heard and looked at the generals, who didn't even raise their heads and remained silent. Lucy exclaimed, don't worry, she's sure he'll become the best floor boss in the world. A 4th-ranked floor can't lose. The protagonist thought in bewilderment. And he's still worried about being treated poorly? Well, well. At that moment, Agares approached him, bowed politely, and said with a smile, he apologizes for meeting you so late. He offered his sincere congratulations on your new position. He was one of the 4 generals of the Demon Lord's palace. He replied, confused, that he was pleased to meet you. Agares assured him that he was too and hoped for their cooperation. Camilla remarked in surprise, really, he's here? She hadn't even noticed him. The general replied, he wasn't using dark magic just now. The girl remarked she could swear he was doubtful of Lima's power right now, wasn't he? The general replied with dignity. Unlike her, he had no direct communication with the commander, who was also a dark mage. The skills of ordinary dark mages, if they were weakening, would only be a few %. If they were physical damage but only slightly, skills that affected awareness would have a low success rate. And even if they were successful, they couldn't be maintained forever. Even if the effects worked, truly strong people still couldn't defeat her alone. Therefore, it was logical to suspect she had lied in her reports. However, The others' reports also said that their new commander was an order of magnitude superior to other dark mages, and she had been madly in love with him ever since he attacked their palace. Camilla replied sheepishly. Perhaps he was right, but he acted cowardly. MC clarified in surprise. So that's true? Camilla responded indignantly, just revealing the girl's personal information, as if it were supposed to be so. How disgusting. Lucy apologized, adding that she was the one who told him everything. Camilla angrily addressed her by her title, glaring at her so hard that Lucy sank back into her throne. She apologized. Agares said that, regardless, since the Demon Lord had accepted him, he had no choice but to agree with her. But who gave her the right to treat their ruler like that? Lemk thought perplexedly. So his appearance had surprised everyone, especially since he, having been expelled from the heroes' group, had immediately become their commander. Nevertheless, they still addressed him politely. Despite being younger, Agares seemed a good man who respected the Demon Lord. The general said that the Demon Lord might be angry with them, that was natural, but not the other way around. The protagonist was surprised. Was he imagining things, or did he say something strange? Camilla rudely told the general to shut his mouth. He'd better try to avoid being seen by law enforcement. His arrest would cause too many problems. Agares exclaimed, "Nonsense. He's just a child protector. Children's lives are paramount, and he would never touch children. That's his loyalty as a protector. Therefore, he would prefer it if she didn't compare him to those scum who want to taint these sweet angels with their lust." Camilla irritably asked what he meant by protector. He says that all the time, even when he's insulted, humiliated, and angry. After that, she turned to Lucy and asked her to be careful around him. If he asks her to touch him, she should refuse. The overlord angrily replied, "Don't talk nonsense." She would never answer such a criminal request. Agares theatrically threw up his hands and exclaimed, the overlord should stop looking at him with such disdain. If possible, he'd just like her to keep a closer eye on him. Camilla had pointed this out, so he didn't agree that he should be arrested? She looked at MC, who was watching this all in confusion, and laughing, said, "Don't worry, their monsters aren't as sick as that general. And she's his devoted fan, so it's all fine." She simply plastered his photos all over her room, collected all the revealing shots she'd found online, and sent them with text messages so incompetent editors would feature him more. That's all she did. Agares was indignant. What kind of devoted fan was she? She was a complete stalker. The protagonist drew attention to himself, diffusing their verbal sparring, and said he hadn't been told about his duties yet, so he wanted to ask the Demon Lord about them. That was okay, right? Agares sheepishly offered him his sincere apologies. Camilla, too, bewildered, apologized to him. Lucy laughed and told the protagonist he's quite something, as expected of their commander. His name is now Lemegeton, he asked, perplexed. Lemegeton, Camilla replied. Exactly, she'd been thinking about it lately. Their Demon Lord is handing out new dungeon names to everyone. MC replied, I see. So his name is Lemegeton? Lucy exclaimed. It sounds quite nice, don't you think? With that name, he'll lead the monsters into battle from now on. She was sure everyone else would agree. He thanked her and thought, when dungeon raids became a form of entertainment, many systems were developed to ensure everyone remained alive. And naturally, there are rules for all laws. A dungeon name, raid recording stones, registration cards, mana bodies, the ability to return. It only made sense that the hero's party would be on the side of light. Meanwhile, all the monsters will side with the dark side and be destroyed. Even though these are presets, some still perceive the actions within as reality. To avoid being identified, the demi-humans siding with the monsters began wearing special outfits and using other names, born of the dungeon's names. People are very offended when the hero's party is forced to retreat or suffers defeat. However, it is their true nature to want victory for the heroes. For example, the day after someone's favorite adventurer loses to an orc, that person might go and beat up an innocent orc. And if such things happen, everyone is in danger. After some time, he took a seat at the conference table. Furcus was breathing strangely. Seeing the protagonist's surprised look, Camilla said, "It seems their child has fallen asleep." "Fine, let him ignore it." He wondered, puzzled. The child has fallen asleep. One was asleep, the other was gone. They clearly weren't what he'd imagined. After a while, Camilla summarized briefly, something like this. "Does he have any questions?" The protagonist thoughtfully asked to repeat everything. His name in the dungeon was Lemegeton. His mana body shouldn't reveal his identity. Lucy noted that, to be honest, she'd also been bothered by the slight similarity with his name, but then she'd come to like it, so she had no doubts. He figured that, since she was saying that, he didn't really have much of a choice. Camilla mentioned the avatar. Would it be bad if he wore a mask? The Demon Lord replied, bad? He'd be recognized without it. The girl turned persistently to the ruler. Lucy noted with bewilderment, but that's true. It all depends on who's looking at him. Or is she trying to say she's joking? Agares exclaimed indignantly. Damn vampire. That's the second time. They should happily serve the Demon Lord, not defy her like she's doing now. The protagonist said conciliatorily. Okay, maybe they could help him choose an avatar then? He considered lightening his skin and changing his hairstyle, but he couldn't change himself beyond recognition. And if he added horns, he wouldn't be considered human at all. There were cases of demi-humans removing their distinctive features. Come to think of it, Lily had argued with Alba about this. Elves aren't much different in appearance from humans, but they are quite beautiful. That's why they've become popular in just the past few years. The number of elven adventurers keeps growing every year, but viewers want to see human battles. Alba emphasized this point. He and Phoenix sided with Lily, but she told him that, frankly, the effects of his dark magic aren't always noticeable. Besides, their style is to go straight ahead, crushing the enemy with force. Better yet, she would have preferred even more power than support. Camilla, noticing his sad look, asked if something was bothering him. He answered no, nothing. Lucy looked at him carefully and said, "Oh yes. About his work as a commander." He answered yes and then wondered, what does a commander do? The demon lord threw him an object and told him to catch it. When MC, having caught it, opened his hand, he saw a ring. Lucy said she was giving it to him. He asked, "What is this?" He wondered what kind of ring it was. Is it an animal bone? No, although it seemed so. The demon lord replied that the ring would allow him to summon anyone he made a contract with. It dawned on him. It was a magical weapon. These are things with incredible magical power, created by now extinct species. One such weapon is the sword Alba. He is sure the boy got it from his father. Lucy said that if his mana and the mana of the person he wanted to form a contract with flowed into this ring simultaneously, then they would only need to make a verbal oath, and the contract would be formed. The ring was a simplified summoning item. He asked in surprise, "Summoning, meaning it wasn't an acquired ability?" She replied, "That's true, but she could only accept 72 participants, so he should remember that and not forget. Not that many." He would use this ring to summon monsters to get rid of adventurers. Using it this way, he would be able to use dark magic to its fullest potential. MC thought he'd agree. There were quite a few dark mages among monsters too, and he'd never heard of adventurers switching jobs. In that case, he could expand the scope of his combat tactics and lure more people to his side. He could become a small guiding light for many species. The Overlord added, regarding his ring, she will temporarily limit his contact targets to her subordinates. No matter how brilliant the strategy or how great the general, if he doesn't build relationships with others, then such a contract is worthless. His first task is to get close to everyone. The protagonist turned to her and said not to worry. He wasn't going to start a war with anyone without reason. He looked at the ring and thought, magical tools are very valuable these days. Even if he was appointed their commander, giving him such a thing, that's something. All because he's her grandfather's disciple. Lucy looked at him carefully and said she was counting on him, the commander. The protagonist clenched his fist with the ring and thanked her, saying he would cherish it. After a moment's silence, the Overlord said, she thinks it would be better for them to meet a little later. He seemed tired of all the chatter and the piles of information. MC objected, not at all. Thank her very much. After that, Lucy said, let everyone listen up. She's planning a welcoming party, so Agares will help her. The general exclaimed joyfully, yes, let her entrust this matter to him. He'll reserve a table, complete with all her favorite sweets. And when the time comes, he'll unexpectedly be honored to sit next to the demon lord. Lucy exclaimed sharply. Refused. She didn't even want to know what he intended to do next. Agares was indignant, telling her he would never do such a thing to her. He became embarrassed under her gaze, and, lowering his head, he remarked, what a distrustful look she was directing at him, her loyal follower. After a brief silence, he turned to her and said tensely, thank you very much. Everyone looked at him silently, and at that moment, the snores of Furcus were heard. As the allies left the hall, Camille told the protagonist she would accompany him outside. The registration card would arrive in a few days, and she apologized for that. He assured her that everything was fine. The girl said sheepishly, moreover, today he had observed a part of her that she was ashamed of. The protagonist exclaimed he had never been praised so much as today. He was truly very happy. Besides, thanks to her, he was able to remember a lot. For example, why he wants to become a hero. Anyway, he'll soon forget it, so she shouldn't worry about it. Camille, smiling happily, replied that if he didn't find her disgusting, she was glad to hear it. She mentally noted that she didn't think he was that strange. The girl added, he's very kind, but let him tell you how far he'll let her go. MC stared at her in confusion and asked in surprise, what did she mean? The girl was incredibly embarrassed and, stuttering, barely managed to utter the words, can she be his first? Lem exclaimed in confusion. What on earth is she even talking about? Camilla, blushing to the tips of her hair, hastened to answer. No, nothing. Let him forget what she said. She apologized profusely to him. Clearing her throat, she wriggled out of the situation and said, the ring. Actually, it records the order. He asked in surprise, the order? She answered, that's right. For example, if he makes a contract with her, she will be number 1. Likewise, she will be his very first monster. MC said, confused. I see. After a moment's silence, Camilla admitted she was a true fan of his, and she was the one who suggested inviting him to the demon lord's palace. And she also showed him a lot today, and she was appointed his personal secretary for the time being. She also sat next to him while his duties were explained. He listened to her in confusion, not understanding what she was getting at. He thought, he knows how strong this girl is. She may have a strange approach, but she's kind. They'd only met today, but he knew how much courage it took for her to take such a step. Besides, she treats him so well. In a fit of emotion, he grabbed her by the shoulders and exclaimed, he hoped so too. Does she want to be the first monster to sign a contract with him? She asked in surprise. Is he sure about that? The protagonist abruptly removed his hands from her shoulders and apologized. The girl also apologized, saying that she brought him here and told him about the contract, and she was prepared for him to reject her. So, can she suck it? Seeing his stunned expression, she exclaimed, that's not what he thought. He should forget it. He thought in amazement. She said that if she's a vampire, does that mean she meant blood? He'd heard that vampire instincts can take over, but why was she acting like this? Camilla, red as a lobster, shook her head and repeated. She said, let him forget it. Pulling himself together, he said, so, the arrangement and the contract. Is everything all right? She replied, yes, please. Is he sure of his decision? Being first is always very important to someone. The protagonist replied that everything was fine. He wanted to ask her about this in the first place anyway, so let her not think about it. The girl looked deeply into his eyes and said yes. He remembered Lucy's words about how a contract is made with a ring and said, if he's not mistaken, she should begin. Camilla said, please let him give her his hand. Taking the ring, she placed it on his finger, bowed her head and said, I accept Lord Liam's proposal and I hereby swear, no matter where or what happens, I will always come to him wherever he is. Afterwards, she tenderly kissed his hand where the ring had been. MC began to notice strange changes in himself with surprise. A shudder seemed to run through him. He looked at the smiling girl in amazement and thought, she's become his very first contracted soldier. The girl laughed shyly and said, she spoiled herself by becoming her master's first. As soon as he summons her, she will definitely come wherever he wishes. The protagonist, confused, replied, please don't let her say too many ambiguities. She looked at him in surprise and said, with his mana, it shouldn't be a problem, should it? He blushed, embarrassed, and didn't know what to say. Camilla smiled and said, she's just joking. Let him forgive her. It must be disgusting to hear a girl trying to woo him, and he doesn't even know her, right? The MC replied sheepishly, not true, I think. She had made a joking remark, wasn't she? He asked her to forget about it. The girl seemed to have grown bolder. She playfully asked him if he thought it was too early for them to meet in his room at night. Seeing his flushed face, she added that she was just joking. After that, Camilla addressed him by name, extended her hand, and said that she hoped he would take good care of her from now on, as someone in the Demon Lord's palace, as a secretary, and as a contractor. The protagonist shook her hand and replied that he hoped for her too. He believed she would treat him just as well. The girl replied with a smile, he can just call her Milla, short for her main name. However, she asks that he call her Camilla during work, okay? He assured her of this. Leaning toward him, she whispered in his ear that if he'd summoned her, she wouldn't have had to sneak into his room in the middle of the night. The protagonist pulled away from her, rubbed his ear, and looked at her in confusion. She started to leave, and he called her name. After that, he silently told himself that even though she was his admirer, they had simply made a contract, and now they were partners, nothing more. That was all. His profession now was army commander. First, he had to get close to everyone and make contracts. Even though there were many different personalities here, it didn't change anything. He had to give it his all and take it seriously. Like Camille, he believed that there were people who looked up to him. And so his days as commander began. The day after his appointment, he thought perhaps he should visit Cassia. Today was his first day on duty at the Demon Lord's side. Lucy had said that his first task was to get close to everyone. Even if it was an order, how could he carry it out? Walking down the street, he decided decisively, no, his choice had already been made. He would become a hero to the monsters. He hadn't been appreciated in his previous group, but perhaps they would appreciate him at the palace. Arriving at the market, he greeted a vendor named Blitz warmly. The man smiled and remarked that coming here already felt like home. Turning to the girl, he wished her good morning as well. Cassia greeted him with a smile. Blitz said, thank you for helping me yesterday. Dark mages truly are amazing. The protagonist sheepishly replied, let him speak for himself. He was good too. The vendor tried to object, but the protagonist replied, as for me, if possible, he'd prefer they didn't talk about me to strangers. Blitz said, I believe the master has made his choice, leaving all the honors to him and quietly leaving. Of course, he won't tell anyone anything. After this, the man turned to Cassia and remarked, this applies to her too, understand? The girl grimaced and said with resignation, her boss dealt with the villain. Lord Lame had no part in it. MC smiled and thanked her. Then he thanked Blitz for his support. The merchant insisted. No, they should be thanking him. After all, after that incident, they were able to sell all their goods. Handing him the bag of money, he said, let him keep it. It's his share. Seeing the commander's puzzled expression, the merchant continued. Isn't it natural to express gratitude after help? The protagonist protested. He can't accept it. But Blitz insistently pressed the reward into his hands and said, it's fine. The protagonist sheepishly thanked him. Cassia thought in surprise, is it natural to thank him? She rushed to the fruit shelf, selected the best fruit, handed it to MC, and said, here, let him accept her gratitude. He sat down in front of her, accepted her gift, and said, thank you. He was truly happy, and before he forgot, he had to tell her his news. He'd gotten a new job, so could she give him some more fruit? He wanted to treat them. The girl happily accepted his request. The merchant noticed, so he'd gotten a new job? He replied, yes, but to be honest, he wasn't used to it yet. Blitz said, "That's wonderful." And which group had he joined? He'd add them to his list and keep an eye on him every time. The protagonist hesitated. He wondered if he had access to the dungeons. Even if he wanted to, could he tell them? He's still looking for companions, and he switched his crew from adventurers to monsters. But is he really happy about it? He said out loud, "No need, he's only there temporarily anyway." The merchant replied, "I see." Cashew turned to the protagonist, embarrassed, and, showing him the fruit, said regretfully she'd picked it. But it all didn't look so good. He laughed and assured her, "It's all right. What's inside is much more important than what's outside. Her fruit really is delicious, so she shouldn't worry." At that moment, Camilla appeared beside him, disguised as a simple townswoman, and said, "His bags, would you mind if she carried them?" The protagonist asked, surprised, her name drawn out. The girl stared at her with interest. The girl quietly asked him, "Are you as crazy as auguries?" The general claimed they were kindred spirits. The protagonist responded indignantly, "No, he asks her not to mislead people." Camilla said, "Yes, she's joking. Something else is more important." She curtsied in front of Cashew and said good morning to the little fruit seller. The girl shyly reciprocated. Looking at Camilla's figure in surprise, she said, "She's not small, she'll grow up soon." MC thought confusedly, "Isn't she talking about her weight?" The demon answered Cashew, "Maybe it would sound rude, but she'd like to tell her something. Wouldn't she like to go and work with them?" The girl was taken aback by her proposal. The protagonist said in bewilderment, "Personal secretary?" Camilla told the girl she'd like her to become Mr. Lemma's personal secretary. Cashew apologized, confused, and clarified, "So she'll be getting a good salary?" Blitz exclaimed. "Isn't that wonderful news? And yet, it's not bad for Lemma to have such a wonderful friend." Camilla said the protagonist helped her once, and they've been in touch ever since. The merchant remarked, "So that's it." She laughed, and MC thought in surprise, "Once. She must be talking about him joining the Demon Lord's army." The merchant continued, saying that since she's the protagonist's friend, he can trust her. But how true are her words? Camilla replied that she could reassure him, but it was still Cashew's choice, and it was hers to decide. She was curious to see what she would do, since she didn't communicate with anyone other than him and her family. If everything went well, she could discuss the details with her family. Cashew asked, perplexed, "But why her?" Camilla looked at her and said, "She's sorry, but she overheard her conversation with MC yesterday." He wondered, surprised, if she was there at that moment. The girl continued, telling Cashew that, in any case, if she worked with them, it would be easier for her to share this burden with her mother than it was now. More importantly, the new job with the protagonist was very stressful, and he would be able to handle it more easily with such a wonderful secretary by his side. The girl clenched her fists in excitement and wagged her tail. Blitz remarked with a smile, "God, since she would be with the protagonist all the time, he wouldn't have to worry." Cashew, in her excitement, said his name twice and asked if becoming his secretary meant she would cause trouble. He laughed in surprise and replied, "No, he was just happy to be with her." It sounded funny that she could cause him trouble. He could just be more productive with her at work. Definitely so. But in his mind, he wondered, was it okay to bring a little girl to the Demon Lord's palace? If they were telling her she would be the secretary, that meant she didn't need protection. She'll only do paperwork. He looked at Camille, then at the embarrassed girl, and said, "Don't force yourself." The girl protested. No, she would do it. She wanted to help him. She wanted to become his personal secretary. After that, she turned to her boss and asked if he agreed. Blitz smiled and replied, "Absolutely. She could start right now. He would always support her in this." Then the man placed his hand on MC's shoulder and added, "She's under his care now." He agreed. Camille concluded, "Well, since everyone's decided, they can go." The merchant bustled about and quickly returned to his allies, saying, "Here's a gift from him to celebrate their new job. 2 baskets of fruit." The protagonist thanked the man heartily. Camille said thoughtfully, "Fruit. She'll tell her subordinate, and he'll come and pick it up." Blitz said, "Well, in that case, he can keep an eye on the protagonist's package." The girl replied with a smile, "Okay." Then, they'll go and greet the girl's mother. They set off for the location. The girl's mother came out and hugged her tenderly. When the allies explained the reason for their visit, the woman looked at them in surprise. MC thought Cashew's mother owned a used clothing store. The girl had an older and younger sister, as well as a younger brother. He was surprised how her mother could raise so many children alone. That's why Cashew believed that if she worked more, her mother would be less tired at work. And yes, the girl's mother immediately rejected her daughter's offer to join the Demon Lord's army, even when she was told the girl would earn a good salary. This shows how much she cares for her children. But in the end, she allowed it, because Cashew stood firm to the end. The woman bowed her head to him and said, her daughter told her about him. Clearly, as a customer, he comes first for the girl. He thought in surprise, a customer? She's keeping everything a secret, as always. Out loud, he replied, yes, he believed that was true. The woman continued, her daughter might be inexperienced, but she hoped he would take care of her. The protagonist assured her, of course, he would take full responsibility for her. After a while, Cashew waved to her mother, and the allies left. On the way, he asked the girl, is she sure? She wasn't surprised that he was no longer an adventurer and working in the Demon Lord's palace. Cashew happily replied, Not at all. He would achieve great heights as a commander. The allies smiled and he thanked her. On the way, the girl exclaimed, "She's never walked this path before. Let them see, there goes a butterfly." Camilla glanced at the protagonist and noticed that he seemed very agitated. He asked her to tell him when she had been eavesdropping yesterday. She answered without the slightest embarrassment, right from the start. MC drawled, "I see. She invited Kasia only because she was his friend?" The demon said, "That's one of the reasons. Since he's now the commander, he doesn't care. He needs a secretary. But what a shame. What a shame. She won't be able to be his secretary after the probationary period ends." He smiled and noticed, "But Kasia is just a child." Camilla grabbed him by the shoulders and decisively exclaimed, "Who do you think he needs?" He was taken aback by her gesture and found nothing to reply, fumbling with his words. She said, "A like-minded person. The one he needs is precisely a like-minded person." MC looked at her in surprise and repeated, "A like-minded person?" The girl noticed, "Right. Even if he rules others with a strong hand, he still depends on others. Now from this moment on, she and Kasia will admire him." He said, perplexed. "What?" the girl said, and both she and the girl knew that his heart and magical abilities were very strong. "He's amazing. And for people like him, hiding it or being unrecognized, she doesn't understand it. He's a wonderful dark mage." Kasia was admiring the butterfly on her hand at the time. The protagonist looked at the demon in confusion. When he regained his ability to speak out of surprise, he thanked the girl and added, "He'll do everything in his power." Camilla said that through the ring he has a contract with, he can summon monsters from other floors and control them, but he needs permission from both the monster and the floor boss. Her subordinates are generally free, and he can use them, but from now on, they need to find him more comrades who will fully understand him, just as they do with Kasia, and whose relationship will be built on trust. The protagonist thought, comrades who understand him, someone he could trust and fight shoulder to shoulder with. Before professions existed, he was the center of attention among the children in the village. He had many friends besides Phoenix. However, as soon as professions appeared, everyone became for themselves. Everyone was like, "What the hell? And he's saying he'll become a hero? He's always been a dark mage, and that's what he'll always be. He has no future. He's not that tough." Back then, only Phoenix stood by him until the end, as long as he could. But everyone abandoned him, saying there was no use in dark magic, and that he would never become a hero. Yes, everyone except him was Phoenix. He challenged him to become the best. They would become the strongest heroes. And now, he has new comrades, monsters and adventurers. Perhaps their paths have diverged for now. But as the commander of the Demon Lord's army, when they meet, he will fight Phoenix without hiding his strength. He will gather a team of strong comrades who will trust each other. They reached the Demon Lord's castle, and he thought that the reception was on the first floor. The floors below were the dungeon and other places, such as public baths for the staff, a dining hall, a forge, and a small cinema. There were so many places that today Mila decided to gather the comrades together and give them a little tour of the castle. They walked along the corridor, and he asked, "Did she say the stadium?" She agreed and said that a group of werewolves was training there today. Their leader and floor boss, Marchosius, was very kind. He only looked a little unfriendly. Lemma thought that they had recently fought him as the boss of the fourth floor. If you think about it, will he accept him, a former adventurer? Werewolves are a species that can use both human and demi-human bodies. Will he be less friendly with him? He is very worried about this. He hopes that he will get to know him. He wants to do everything possible to make him his comrade. They came to the door and she said with a smile that it would look like the attack recording stone. "Then there's the second stadium. They're ready to go, right?" He looked to the side and asked, "Well, is she ready to go?" Kasia couldn't reach with her pass, so she agreed and said that they should go. He lifted her up and asked if he could entrust such a matter to his personal secretary. She happily said that of course she could. He took her in his arms. They entered the stadium, and he was surprised by how spacious it was. Crowds of werewolves were running around the stadium, and they all walked closer to them together. Marchosius stood in the center and loudly told his brothers that they must run again and again. If their speed is halved under the onslaught of terrible dark magic, then if they double their speed, it will become the same. He looked to the side, noticed Camille, called her and asked what brought her here. He also noticed the others, and the protagonist thought that he was stronger than ever before. The boss of the fourth floor of the Demon Lord's castle, the leader of the werewolves. They looked at each other. He called him Mr. Dark Mage, leaned over, patted him on the shoulder in a friendly manner, and said loudly that he would never have believed that he would join their army. He is very happy about it, it's true. He said that he can call him Lemegaton. He promised to remember it and said that it turns out that he already has a name in the dungeon. He is glad to meet him. He was a little confused by this and thought, did he still say hello? That's how it is. So she knew it would be like this. Even so, if you look closely, he really does look quite kind and good. He put Kasia down after holding her in his arms and said that he remembered the last time he lost. MC said that it was not necessary. He and his followers were also strong. He lowered his hands and said that it was all because he and that man, the flame hero, were very frightening. He asked, for them he was strong, right? Suddenly he raised his voice and asked what he was saying. She was very scared, hid behind his back, and he also became a little worried about it. He leaned towards him and said loudly in a serious tone that the flame hero's strength depended on his dark magic. He had never seen dark magic so strong. He calmed down a little and said that, By the way, he was very young. How long did he train to achieve such a result? As a man of honor, he admired him. As he said earlier, he and that man were very frightening. He thought that it meant he was watching not only Phoenix, but him as well. As expected from the floor boss, Marchosia said that, however, something still bothered him. At that moment, when he was fighting the flame hero, he locked eyes with him and the dark magic on him dissipated. Why did this happen? Lam said that it was because Phoenix always wants a one-on-one fight and he also wants that. If he attacks them, they can destroy everyone. But his friend, considering this, wouldn't it be disrespectful of him to interfere? He listened to this and asked. He acted like a real man, but what would he do if the flame hero lost? He calmly said that he would never lose one-on-one, so here the choice is between winning or not losing. However, he still responded to his wish for a one-on-one duel with him. He listened to this, laughed loudly, and said that he is so confident in his friend's victory, but he still shows his respect to the opponent. He knows that only in special cases can a defeated monster move to another floor, but this does not apply to summoning. He began to transform into his human form and said that he had heard that he could gather up to 72 comrades for summoning. In that case, he wanted to become one of them. His plans included defeating the Flame Heroes group, right? He wanted to take revenge on them and he didn't think he was a bad person. So, would he allow him to make a contract with him? He extended his hand, and the protagonist extended his hand in return and said that he was counting on him. They shook hands and Marchosius laughed and said that, since that was the case, they were brothers from today on. He was grateful to Lady Camilla for today. She said with a smile that it was her place to speak. He called his name and said that he swears to answer his summoning. The other werewolves gathered around and asked, but he was higher in rank than him, but they still became friends, right? In that case, he was their brother now, right? He agreed with a joyful smile and thanked him for that. He said that he would most likely be entrusted with the 10th floor, since it was the last line of defense before the 11th floor, where the Demon Lord was located. However, the Phoenix group would still get there, so he should gather more comrades and prepare for an attack. The day after tomorrow, the Flame Hero shouldn't take the 5th floor. Besides, their new members also wanted to take a closer look. He said that he would also be monitoring everything from the control room, so that would be all for today. Marchosius laughed, waved along with the werewolves, and asked, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right? They would see them later. Kashu happily agreed, bidding him farewell and calling him by his shortened name, while MC stood next to him, thinking, it's just that she has trouble pronouncing his name, right? 2 days later, the announcer said that today, the Flame Hero Phoenix and his party would attempt to break through the 5th floor of the Demon Lord's castle. They wondered what awaited them there. They headed to their floor, where they were met by girls dressed in maid uniforms, joyfully greeting their master. They were very surprised by what they saw, and Lime, sitting in the control room, asked, who said it would be easy? He thought that on that day, after Marchosius, he had encountered many other monsters, some of whom had also made contracts with him. Among them were the 1st floor boss, the Guardian of Hell, Nibarius, and his subordinate, the invisible assassin, Glacia Libolas. The 2nd floor boss, the warrior who controls spirits, Chimaris. His assistant, the hunter immersed in darkness, Liray. Each of them was an excellent fighter and a reliable comrade. All the demons in this castle were very strong. Well, they would see what his party was like without him. Alba asked with a confused look, isn't this the 5th floor of the Demon Lord's castle? Aren't they mistaken? Lily was also confused and said they weren't mistaken. A strange scent hung in the air, and Phoenix covered his mouth with a wary look, thinking he had a strange premonition. The demons approached them and asked, so he's the owner of a magic sword? Can she touch it? Isn't that really possible? He became even more wary because of this, looked around, examined them, and thought they were succubi using charm. He loudly said that they should all resist them. His comrades no longer heard anything. He grabbed the blade of the sword and thought that the succubi's abilities were charm and the absorption of magical powers. The hero could resist, but the others would soon die due to the magic being sucked out of their bodies. A new team member approached him, called the leader, and asked if he would let her handle this. He agreed with Bella and said that she should show them what she was capable of as the newest member of the team. She swung her sword and bound all the succubi, then sheathed the sword. He said that casting mana drain on everyone was a good move. She went to take care of her comrades affected by the demon's ability, and he thought she was the hero of ice who had made a contract with the spirit of water. Lily came to her senses and apologized to them, and the others said it was as if he had been drinking all night, like a nightmare. As expected of Bella, the impregnable castle of the Lord of Darkness. It was created as a stronghold and refuge for all monster representatives. However, who knew that such an unusual species as succubi would be on this floor? Without a white mage, everyone except the hero would be exhausted. He never thought they could cause so much trouble. Phoenix, with a serious expression, said that everything was fine and that he would go ahead with her. She turned to him and said that she would go first then. If anything happened, the leader would cover her, right? He agreed, and they continued walking, thinking that looking at her, he had no doubt that she was a hero, despite the fact that she was only 13 years old. She went further and said that they should look. There was a door. Suddenly, one of the succubi burst out of a block of ice and pierced her with its hand. She was shocked by what had happened, fell to the ground, and pointed to the side before disappearing. They looked in that direction, and asked. There was supposed to be a safe zone behind the door, but they decided to close the entrance. Phoenix said that meant they now had no choice but to kill the boss of the 5th floor. The succubus, with a smirk, said that they didn't seem to be paying attention to what was happening. They didn't know that if you decrease the amount of mana in a spell, it will be weaker. He ordered them to go forward with a serious expression, but the other demons also burst out of the ice and attacked them. The team members joined the battle and loudly said that the amount of Belle's ice was less and less. Is it all because of their charm ability? He went to the floor boss and said that he would never have thought that the boss would attack on his own. And so suddenly, she asked with a smirk, "Is it true that he can kill the boss with one blow? I wonder, if that girl hadn't used ice, would he have used flames?" She could tell that they would have failed anyway. He said that in that case, since she wished, he would incinerate her with one blow. She calmly said that he was not cute at all. He said in a calm voice that he didn't care. The image of a hero should match people's expectations. She said with a displeased look that he was starting to irritate. He said that he didn't expect anything else from her. He is the hero of flame. He will defeat her and move on. She said with an angry expression that she, the demon of love, Citri, and he really pisses her off. After that, Phoenix struck with his sword, which attracted the attention of everyone around, asked for forgiveness, and said that, however, they would never lose. The next day, their team came to a tavern where Bella, holding a glass of lemonade in her hand, offered to drink. However, all the other members of the squad sat silently and thought about something with a confused look. She was a little tensed by this atmosphere, but Phoenix banged his mug and supported her. The rest of the squad decided to do the same, and the atmosphere slightly improved. After that, they went in the same group to the 6th floor and found themselves on a bridge surrounded by water, from where sharks attacked them. Lily attacked with a bow, but missed and said that they were fast. She could not aim properly. They were also attacked by fishmen. Alba blocked their attacks with his sword and loudly declared that they must get away from here, those annoying fish heads. Lark blocked their attacks with his shield and loudly declared that they were hitting harder each time. Phoenix, with a calm expression on his face, silently deflected the attacks of all the monsters around him. However, he heard a loud sound, noticed a huge shadow, and in a worried tone, loudly declared that they should all step aside. A huge shark flew towards Lark, but he stood still, looking tired, apologized, and said that he could no longer. The huge monster ate him, and Lily called out to him in a worried tone. Alba looked behind her and loudly warned her of the danger. With Belle's help, they were able to capture the 6th floor, but the result was far from ideal. Lark was eaten by the sea monster Fornis, and Lily simply left the floor after him. Even though they had defeated the floor boss, the ruler of water, Vapar, it was clear to everyone that the main trio were not in the best shape right now. They had gathered again in the tavern, and he asked, with a displeased expression, if they didn't find it strange that their group was now stronger. But why was it so difficult for them? Lime had left them, after all. Everyone remained silent, and she called his name in a displeased tone. He turned to her and asked what was wrong with her. If she wanted to say something in his defense, it was too late. She owed him something, but she wasn't telling them, right? She said she would never forget what he did for her, but even if she started defending him, he would still say she was lying. He asked why she decided that, and what she was hiding. Lark, looking displeased, sipped from his mug and asked why they were making such a fuss. Alba loudly asked him to shut up and said that he hadn't even spoken to him. If he were him, he wouldn't relax, because he made too many mistakes in the last raid. These words got to him, and he said that he apologized for not having a magic sword like his. He got even more angry because of this, and Bella, looking worried, asked them to stop. Alba indignantly said loudly that something was definitely wrong. Why did the new floors become so difficult when they became stronger? Phoenix said that, however, she was doing everything great. She would make a great hero. He slammed his mug on the table and loudly asked, maybe this unemployed man cursed them. He was definitely capable of something like that. He couldn't stand his insults any longer. Grabbed him by the collar and loudly called his name several times. He pulled him towards him and loudly asked how many more times he needed to repeat it. Everyone around tensed up because of what was happening, and he loudly said that he knew he didn't think highly of him, but it was because of him that he left. However, it still wasn't enough for him, right? Even if he wasn't their comrade anymore, he was still his best friend. Or did he think he'd just stand there and laugh while he sling mud at him? He pushed him away and said in an angry tone that the same applied to the others. He wasn't asking them to pretend to be kind, but he wasn't going to tolerate their bullying of his comrades any longer. Lark said he was right, but he also understood Alba's feelings. They, like him, just wanted to become better. However, for now, there was nothing they could do. His friend clearly lacked abilities. Let him remain his friend, but he shouldn't forget that, first and foremost, he was just like them. Or was he also willing to abandon them? Phoenix gritted his teeth and thought that in the end, he'd come to the conclusion that his attitude towards them was also a problem. After all, he'd hidden his friend's true strength from them, and now these three thought he was simply useless. He calmed down and said that he meant he would treat all his comrades equally, but he still believed that he was important to them. He sat down in his seat and said that he didn't expect them to understand, so they should forget the past and move forward. Bella raised her hand and said that she had a guess about them moving forward. They said that the 5th and 6th floors were difficult, right? Although it's obvious, but haven't they noticed that they were, how should I say, luckier before? They don't think so? She doesn't know, Mr. Lem, and all this is just her guess. But don't they think that this gentleman's abilities are really much stronger than they seem at first glance? They were all very surprised by what they heard, and she looked at the leader with a small smile. She said that compared to previous videos, the accuracy of Alba and Lily's attacks was much higher. She agreed with this, and Bella called Lark and asked if it had become more difficult for him to repel attacks. He agreed, and Phoenix paused. She decided to explain that they had become weaker without his power. He had noticed more than once that she researched a lot of old information and kept an eye on everything on the battlefield too. She was quite intelligent and much different from the other adventurers. He asked, "Does she mean his magic?" He didn't finish his question, and Lily said that they should now think about how to move forward now that they had lost the support of a first-class dark mage. She said with a small smile that, of course, they could ignore words, because where had they ever seen such a weak comrade help the team so much? Alba grabbed his head and said that since she had said so, the only bad thing about it was that he had left. He sat next to her, lowered his head, and asked, if you think about it, how many times had he saved them? Phoenix said that he was no longer on the team, so he was only counting on their abilities. According to her suggestion, they now needed to come up with a new strategy. The 5 of them will capture the Demon Lord's castle and not lose, because heroes never lose. At the same time, Citri cried with a sad expression, asked Lucy for forgiveness, and said that she lost. She patted her head with a kind smile and asked, but she killed one, right? Moreover, this person was a hero. She looked to the side, called MC, and said that tomorrow is his first battle. Has he found comrades yet? He bowed, agreed, thanked her, and said that it was all thanks to her help. She said that since this is a banquet in his honor, there will be those who are interested in him. There will also be those who came here to eat for free. He thought that today was the banquet in honor of his joining. The Demon Lord reserved a table at her favorite establishment. There are also so many different types of monsters here. He is happy that he had the chance to attend such events. Wherever he goes, everyone immediately notices and greets him. As she said, everyone in her army will try to establish friendly relations with him. Later, his attention was caught by Citri, saying that the child named Phoenix was funny. He was determined to the last, and his spirit was unwavering. Even his 4th rank in the world does not stop him from showing respect to demons. If she were told that the gods decided to create the strongest magical body, and this child would be the result of their experiments, she would believe it. He thought that he did not see anything wrong with them praising his best friend, only he was not always so strong. However, looking at him now, he would have never thought that he was once weak. After all, he destroyed her with one blow and quickly captured the 5th floor. However, here he is getting closer and closer to the children, and even his presence does not bother him. Dishes were brought to them, and Kashiu, with a happy expression on her face, said how delicious it looked. His attention was caught by Camilla, who called his name. She handed him a spoon with a dish and asked him to open his mouth. He became embarrassed because of this and asked, did she want to feed him with a spoon? She was very upset by this reaction, covered her face with her hand and asked, is that so? He does not accept food from a monster like her, right? She apologizes. It will not happen again. He was very worried about this reaction and said that he did not mind at all. She was very happy about this. He ate with an embarrassed expression on his face, and Kashiu noticed this and decided to do the same. She pierced a small piece of meat with a fork and held it out to him. He ate what she offered. But next to them, Agares loudly called out to the pseudo-succubus and said that she should take her hands off her. Can't she see that the Demon Lord wants to eat pudding? And she is bothering her. Citri turned to him and said that he doesn't have to worry about it. She will feed her. He got angry because of this and loudly said that then she should show him at least one employee who hugs his boss after work. It is unacceptable. She said in a calm tone that here, he should see. She is here. She called out to Lucy and asked if their relationship is unacceptable. Isn't her heart pounding wildly in anticipation right now? She calmly said that she wouldn't say that. In response, she said that it meant it wasn't ready yet, but it was okay. She would try. Lemme looked at them and thought that she was trying to be happy, but it was obvious that she was upset by the defeat. Agares got even more angry because of her behavior, called her a pseudo-succubus again, and she said that he should stop saying that she was not a real succubus. He didn't know that was unpleasant to hear. She called Lucy and said that he was offending her. She sighed, called him and said that he should stop mocking her. He himself said that they should show respect to allies and call them by their names. She supported this and said that before saying anything, he should look at himself. He would be better off taking an example of behavior from Ms. Milla and the team secretary. She noticed that they were both handing food to the protagonist and asked what they were doing. What kind of relationship is this? She asked with a serious expression what she meant by that. Couldn't it be obvious that she was busy? Citri was a little confused by this and asked, Wasn't she older than this child? She had been friends with her for much longer. Then why was she so disposed towards her? She asked. How else should she talk to her when the master was around, especially since she always treated her well? She was very surprised by this, couldn't believe it. And Camilla with a friendly smile asked, how could one treat such a good girl badly? She should just be herself. She turned to Lucy, called her and asked, was she really good? She was a little confused by this, agreed and praised her. He thought that all the generals were friendly in one way or another. Agares found out about Kasia from someone. He approached them and said that this is how their master commander got another companion. Everything is fine. No need to hide her. MC shook his hand and thought that he immediately decided to make a contract with him, with some conditions. The way he talks to her is another story, but since the Demon Lord recognizes him as one of her generals, it means he will not harm his allies. At least he hopes so. Later, he met the Dark Knight, who was in full armor and slept at the first meeting. He also learned that her name in the dungeon was Furcus. He handed her a plate of food. She quickly ate it and said that he should give her food every time he calls her for help. After that, in the hallway, Citri and she, with a serious expression, asked if he could tell if he could defeat that child. He realized that she was talking about Phoenix and said that he could handle it with the support of each of them. She asked if he was sure he could stop his best friend from getting first place. He said in a decisive tone that he didn't care. Why should he give in to him if he's his best friend? He'll fight to the end. She was a little surprised by this and said they'll talk next time. Since he made her happy, that means she'll sign a contract with him in return. Does he think it's weird when she talks about herself in the third person? She said goodbye to him. Lem returned to the hall, called Kasia and said it was time for them to leave. She turned to him and happily agreed. He came closer and asked if she had fun. She agreed and said she'd spent a lot of time in good company. His attention was drawn to Lucy, who said she was a promising girl. He turned to her and she asked if she saw he'd already talked to everyone. He agreed with a small smile, and she asked if he was ready for tomorrow's fight. He resolutely agreed and said he'd show what he was capable of. After that, he put Kasia on his back, said goodbye to his comrades, and they left. She called him in a sleepy voice and said that in the future she would be a monster. That is, she wanted to become one. She had already made her choice. He said with a smile that that was how it was. He thought with a thoughtful look that she was only 8 years old. You can only find out your profession at 10. He hadn't yet told her that everything might not go as she wanted. When he reached her age, he dreamed of becoming a hero. But what advice could he give her if he gave up and didn't want to be one when his profession was determined as a dark magician? In any case, he would support and guide her on the path of her dreams. She called the master and said that she had a favor to ask of him. He turned to her and asked what that favor was. She said that until she grew up and could help him, his ring, she wanted him to stop making contracts after the 71st. He thought that this was very similar to Mila, who wanted to be his very first. Kashiu asked if he was really against it. He denied it with a smile and said that he was all for it. Now he had one more goal in life. She asked if he really wanted this. He agreed. She closed her eyes and said that she would try her best and make a contract with the master. The protagonist agreed. She fell asleep, and he looked at the sky and thought that tomorrow would be his first fight. Sometime later in the staff communication room, Lucy called him Lemegaton and asked if he was absolutely sure she would fulfill his request, but he immediately agreed and said that since he decided to become a monster, it would be better this way. He was grateful that she did this for him. She said with a smile that he was so strange. He knows about this, right? When demons have only one horn then. He agreed and said that he knew everything. She understood this and asked if her grandfather told him. Okay, he advised her to give him a good and scary name in the dungeon. He laughed and said that he assumed that he would be close to the demon lord. She chuckled and said that he shouldn't take it to heart. He has the right to do so. If he wants, he can become the demon lord. He must promise not to reveal his name to anyone, okay? Today, he is a mysterious guy in a robe. He agreed to this, and she said that since this is his first defensive battle, he must not fail. He said that he will prove that she chose him for a reason. She asked with a smile, is he really making a promise? Before leaving, he looked at her and said that he will be back soon. MC teleported to the first floor of the Demon Lord's castle. Glacia Labolas approached him, and he called him by name and said that he hoped that they would get along today. He said in a friendly tone that they should drive away the invaders. He said that the hero would appear soon. As soon as they got closer, he should dispel the magic. He thought that the invisible assassin, his name was too long, so he got used to calling him simply Glacia in his head. His magic makes the target invisible. Today they will use this ability to fight. Their guests today are ranked 249th. They will head straight to the end of the arena, where the boss will be waiting for them. Since Phoenix has already passed the first floor, it seems they will simply copy his style of passing. However, he will interfere with their plans. Let them not think that the impregnable castle of the Demon Lord is named like that for nothing. In their group, there is a hero, 2 warriors, a holy knight, and a hunter. warriors, a boy and a girl. Lightning, which means the hero has made a contract with the spirit of the wind, so he is called the novice hero of lightning. The hero's group defeated several monsters and asked if they think everything is too easy. Wasn't the first floor created as an introduction? It's a good thing the enemies here have such fierce glares. If they were cuter, she wouldn't have been able to hurt them. Phoenix's group has already cleared this floor. They just need to repeat what they did. However, shouldn't they at least do something in their own style at the end? Anyone who watches their replay will call them a laughingstock. The hero called him an idiot and said that as long as they don't have a mediocre dark mage, they won't be a laughingstock. His teammate said there was some truth to his words. Lemme stood nearby and thought, does that mean he's mediocre? He sounds exactly like Alba. He called Glacia and thought that with the help of invisibility, they knew enough about these opponents. Since they don't have a single mage, even if the enemy is invisible, they still emit magic that hides it. However, the advantage of dark magic is that it is always invisible to the eye. They had already moved away sufficiently. Although he felt sorry for the ghost dogs who went into battle first, he needed such a sacrifice so that the enemy would relax and think that everything would be easy until the end. Behind them, he emerged from invisibility, which attracted their attention, and he wondered, is this how they reacted to him? Perhaps they think of him as a humanoid monster leading a pack of ghost dogs who suddenly appeared behind them. The hero looked at him and asked, who is this? A demon. However, shouldn't there only be dogs here? They began to prepare for battle and asked, however, if he were here, then he would have been visible in the earlier recordings, right? It turns out that the Phoenix group simply didn't meet him. Two monsters appeared next to him, and a member of the group said that they should wait. It was definitely a trap. The protagonist thought that the Holy Knight was right. Although they were all quite informed, their information only ended with his friend's recordings. However, what would have happened if they knew more? For example, that he can become invisible at any time? The hero, with a serious expression on his face, said loudly that they must do this before he disappeared quickly. He looked at him and thought that heroes always choose the path of the group. They have superhuman strength. They can't even imagine losing to anyone other than the Demon Lord. This hero is clearly not satisfied with his position, and he knows it. The hero's group quickly ran towards him, and he raised his hand and pointed a finger in their direction. He used magic, and the Holy Knight said in a confused tone that he couldn't move. He looked to the side and noticed several wolves that jumped on him, and he screamed loudly in fear. The team members noticed this, and one of them loudly asked, what now? They won't help him. The hero loudly said that they should leave him. He is a Holy Knight and can hold off 5 or 6 such monsters. They went on, and the Holy Knight fought off the monsters with all his strength and loudly asked why it was so hard for him to move. MC thought that he wouldn't reveal Lemegeton's identity today. He couldn't let people know that such a powerful dark mage was on the lower floors, so he had to try to stay hidden. The Holy Knight continued to fight off the monsters and loudly asked, can the ghost dogs use dark magic? Or was the robed demon using it, controlling the other dogs? Even if there were fewer of them, he couldn't handle even one now. This was very bad. Either way, someone was using dark magic, but who exactly? He watched from the side and thought he seemed to have figured it out. In fact, if he could defeat the dogs, it would be very good. However, now the invisible dogs could use dark magic, so he'd better kill them first. The monsters attacked him, and he loudly said that this didn't happen with the Phoenix group. It was all a trap. Almost all of them were dark mages and were trying to separate them. After several attacks, he disappeared. His comrades noticed this and said that even if he warned them that it was a trap, they had already fallen into it. The hero ran towards Lemme, and he thought, is he really not going to help his comrades? Phoenix and the other groups use the strategy of going together as a team, but they do not even try to do so, and therefore split up. As originally planned, he went invisible, which made the hero confused and loudly said that this demon should come out here for him to kill it. He sent ghost dogs at him, but he easily fought them off and loudly asked, is he still sending his puppets? Okay, then he will kill them all. He stabbed his sword into the ground, released a wave of lightning around himself, and pushed all the monsters away from him. However, while he was distracted, Glacia jumped towards him from behind. The hero sensed this, turned around sharply, and he looked at this and thought that their attack was going exactly as he planned. In an attempt to track him down, he abandoned his comrades and cast a large-scale spell to detect invisible enemies. Magic consumes the mana accumulated in the body. This means he can't do this for long. Now it's his turn. He used magic on the hero and thought it was mind destruction and pitch darkness. I wonder what he thinks of a mediocre dark mage now? The moment the spell ended, the hero saw Glacia in front of him, who ran very close to him. He bit him on the neck, threw him high into the air, and his body disappeared before everyone's eyes. The rest of the group said it was some kind of mockery. He can't fight anymore. The monsters attacked them and defeated them easily. When the battle was over, the protagonist took off his mask and said that they did a great job. He thanked Glacia and said that without him, he wouldn't have succeeded. He began petting the dogs that had gathered around him and asked, invisibility magic really is amazing, right? They began licking him, and he laughed, asking them to calm down, and thinking that when he returned, he should definitely thank the dogs that had died. Since he liked his hands, he would pet him until he died. That was how his first mission ended. Later, he changed his clothes, looked at himself in the mirror, and thought that he looked pretty good. He was glad that Cashu's mother had picked out a suit for him. Besides, he was very happy that his new job was going so smoothly. After that battle, many groups decided to go to the castle and hunt him down. However, his place was not there. He was the boss of the 10th floor of La Megaton. Now he and Cashew were coordinating personnel on all floors. The Phoenix group continued their advance. They had already passed the 7th floor, the realm of heaven and sorrow, and were already on their way to the 8th, the realm of war. His battle with them was just around the corner, but today he had no time to think about work. He had a day off and promised to meet someone. This girl helps him with everything. He came to the square, looked at his watch and thought, he came half an hour early, right? That means he'll have to wait. He looked around and thought that Milla was already here. A drunk man approached her and asked why she was sitting there. Maybe she was waiting for him? How about having a drink with him? She politely declined, and he asked why she didn't want to. Was his alcohol too cheap for her? She apologized and nicely asked him to leave. He became indignant about this, threw the bottle on the ground, kicked the bench, and loudly asked what she just said. When she is treated well, she should respond in kind. He swung his hand to hit her, but MC grabbed his hand and he turned to him. He easily bent him over, twisting his arm, causing him severe pain. He asked her to let him go and said he understood everything. She got up from the bench, sighed, and said that everything was like last time. He let go of the man, who ran away, and loudly said that he was sorry. He turned to her and thought for a moment. She said, like last time? He started picking up the broken glass from the floor to throw it away, and asked if she was okay. She sat down next to him to help, agreed, and thanked him for it. He remembered what she had said earlier and wondered if he had ever helped her before. When they had thrown away the shards, she had asked if they were leaving already, going on a date on her day off with a gentleman. Was this a dream? He had said with embarrassment that he also liked spending time with her. By the way, could he spoil her today? After that, they had gone for a walk around the city, seen different places, and eaten different foods. Later, his attention had been drawn to the street they had come to. Camilla had called him over and said that she was a little tired. Maybe they should rest somewhere? He had asked with a slightly confused look if she wanted to drink his blood. Was he right? She had puffed out her cheeks with indignation and said that he shouldn't talk about her as if she were some kind of insatiable blood-sucking vampire. Did he really have such a low opinion of her? He was confused by this, and she leaned towards him and said that everything was fine. It was up to him to decide now what he wanted and what to do next. She laughed, and Lima's attention was drawn to a note that fell out of her pocket. He picked it up and said that she had dropped something. It said that it was Citri's manual on how to capture a guy's heart. Camilla was very embarrassed by this, loudly asked him to wait, and said that she had put it in her without her knowledge. She didn't even know that she had something like this. She blushed deeply because of this, and he tried to calm her down and thought that he didn't know why, but he liked her. She always tried to communicate well with him. If not now, then there would be no other chance. He called her and said that he asked her to drink some of his blood. That night they came to the hotel together, and he thought that this is how they ended up in this room. He called her name. She shuddered with excitement, and he asked if they had met before, right? She looked at him and asked if he didn't remember this. He apologized for this, and she said with a smile that if she helped everyone so often, it was no wonder he didn't remember anyone. In her opinion, this was even good. He said that he only vaguely remembered one drunk man and a beautiful vampire. It was 2 years ago, right? She agreed. He began to remember the past and said that everything was exactly like that. She met him 2 years ago. She worked as a vampire in a dungeon in another city. Her specialty is blood control. Only a few of the higher vampires can manage it as well as she. What did she choose? Of course, she became a monster. She didn't have much of a choice, but she had to become stronger. She was so optimistic, counting on her abilities, that she thought that a little more and soon she would become a floor boss or a dungeon leader. Unfortunately, reality is full of disappointments. No one supported her, and when she decided to find out the truth, she heard that adventurers never harm women because it negatively affects their reputation and views. It was all because she was a girl, but she couldn't understand the reason. She was very angry and confused. One day, a noble person invited her to dinner with him. She refused, and her life went downhill. She was assigned to guard the intermediate floor, which no one ever entered. She was very upset, but she had no choice. However, there she met the hero Phoenix's group. Then she saw the main character and thought she knew the truth. It's all because his best friend is the flame hero. His group became the 13th strongest in the world. She approached him, bumped his shoulder, and asked, so, in an attempt to become a high-level dark mage, he decided to become friends with the hero? He turned to her and asked, she doesn't look well, is she okay? Does she have anyone accompanying her? She grabbed her head and wondered why he wasn't angry. Later, when she was walking down the street, a man called out to her and asked, is she okay? She was quite beautiful. Would she like to rest somewhere? She walked on, turned around, wanted to say something, but another man approached her and unexpectedly for her, covered her mouth and nose with his hand with some substance. After that, they took her to a dark alley and told her that she should not misunderstand them. He approached the substance in a jar and asked, she can't move now, can she? He knows she can't. A beautiful girl decided to go and rest after having a little too much to drink. They started tearing her clothes while a third man watched the street, and Camilla wondered Why is the world like this? Nothing good ever happened in her life. She blames only herself for everything. Everyone is only interested in her body. One of them turned around and loudly asked if he could take a moment to help them. However, at that very moment, their accomplice fell head down next to them. They were confused by this and loudly asked what happened to him. He can't see. He has a bad feeling. The MC ran up to one of them, delivered a roundhouse kick to the head, and the thug fell to the ground. The last man was very worried about this, asked him to stop, and asked who he even was. He didn't answer anything to this, and with one strong punch threw him aside. After that, he approached her, gave her his coat, and said that he apologized for being a little late. She should put it on, not for herself. She needs it more now. She started crying and loudly asked why he helped her, even after what she said. He was a little confused and said that when she left the restaurant, those three followed her, so he thought he should follow. She said that this was not the reason. He apologized again and said that, however, he couldn't just ignore something like this. She asked, however, why did he think that, especially about a woman like her? He said with a small smile that he also had those who hated him. Indeed, it hurt, but they are everywhere and everyone has them. However, she was fundamentally different from them. After everything he heard from her, it doesn't seem to him that she hates him. He thinks she is very irritated by something. When someone doesn't like something or is hurt and they can't do anything about it, they try to take it out on others, be it family, friends, or just those who are nearby. However, not everyone is like that. There are those who are simply strong and nothing can break their will. Even so, there is no need to keep everything inside, because one day it will burst out. Therefore, if she wants to speak out, she shouldn't do it with her loved ones. It was better to speak out to a stranger who found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. She began to try to wipe away her tears, apologized repeatedly and said that she was sorry for what she said to him, because he had done nothing wrong. Lem calmly said that everything was fine. He did not hold a grudge against her. Camilla asked why, despite his enormous power, he still listened to vile words addressed to him. Be it a black magician, a woman, or just someone young, there was still no point in being angry at them. However, is that wrong? He agreed and said that she should look at it from the other side. Giving up is always easy, but then she will suffer from everything that happens. Is he right? She calmed down and asked, but he didn't give up, did he? He said that it was all because he had a dream and he wanted to achieve it by any means necessary. He admires those who can simply give up during a competition. Because if you reach your limit and have no strength to go on, it's easier to retreat. Also, if you look at it from another perspective, it's not capitulation, but a retreat. He helped her to her feet and said that knowing this, next time she should try to do everything differently. And if he did anything to her, he apologized. She started crying again, denied it, and said she was very grateful to him.